Yo, 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 what's up, all you burners, stoners, and potheads, and especially all you gardeners out there? This is Mr. Weedman and Big Earl with the Weedman 420 Chronicles, the Grow Hour. Big Earl, my brother, how the hell are you?
I'm doing really good, man. I'm doing good. I'm excited. I love having all of our guests, but I don't think me and you haven't done a show together for a long time.
You and I haven't had a bake session in a hot minute. We've had so many dope guests on. That last one was a banger.
Yeah.
We've had some great people on, man. So, you know why I'm excited today?
Why? Why are you excited?
Because I get to get fucking baked with you, my friend, with you. And I am smoking, grown by this man right here, peanut butter breath. And I smoked this last night on the show, Mrs. Weedman, when we recorded, and I was stony baloney, and I stumbled, mumbled, and fumbled a couple of sentences here and there, and a couple of the articles we read, and I was pretty lit. And then I smoked more of it last night before bed, and boy, did I get a fucking phenomenal sleep on this. So I salute my brother, a little peanut butter bread to you. What are you smoking?
Thank you. So I trimmed up for the first time today some plants that we took down. I bred outside last year, and I did my first run through. It's chilled wine haze crossed to Lebanese Landrace, and
Sounds wonderful.
well, the Lebanese Landrace was just like wild, and I was hoping. I'm happy with where it's at with just the first generation across, because it was like it actually had some structure, and I actually could like find some haze flavor in there, and it's really good. It's really nice.
Nice. How did they look growing? I mean, did they grow tall? Are they more of like a sativa type of plant, or are they more of a indica type of plant where they grow short and bushy? They grow tall and long. How do they grow?
They're grown. So the Lebanese landrace itself was pretty unruly, very unwanted. A million leaves to bud, like not a fun plant to grow. But had some, which I haven't found yet in the crosses, but a couple of its expressions were like the most pineapple-y, exotic pink looking, um, calyx, all like it pretty much didn't grow flower. It was like just like it was very, very odd. So I crossed it, and the chilled one haze is just a giant sativa flowered. I was like, if anything is going to give this a structure, it's going to be something like this. And I did a good job. So I'm going to hit it again. I'm not going to release any of those seeds. I'm going to cross it again and see if I can get some more stable outcomes before I get them out there.
Well, I'm looking forward to trying that strain when I see you again.
I'll bring you some. It's different.
I'm looking forward to trying it and doing some yard work on it.
Yeah.
We, Mrs. Weeman and I smoked that rotten grape the other night, and boy, oh boy, I was stony baloney. And then I smoked some of that blueberry soda the next night.
Yeah,
dude, that is the knockout pump. And I love blueberry strains. No matter, I've never had a bad blueberry strain, but this one, boy, was stony baloney.
Yeah, I was like that one a lot too.
Oh, it's delicious, my friend. So good. Just the flavor and the taste and the smell, but man, the stone, the high. So well done. I mean, most of all the strains I've smoked from you have been great, but that blueberry soda, boy, was phew.
It was a monster plant too. UFO did a great. I don't think they're interested in doing anything with it further. Just through talking to them a little bit. But for me, when I hunted from them on that blueberry soda pack, they were all super strong, very blueberry-y terps. Some of them didn't hit the blueberry quite as hard, but the ones that the one that I breed with that I kept did for sure.
Gotcha. Just well done, my friend. I enjoy every strain I get from you, so and get the smoke from you. So I sent you a picture of the yeet today.
It looks good.
She's looking very pretty, very, 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 very trichomy. Lots of crystals on those plants. It's 6 weeks in flower right now as of Sunday, and today is Wednesday. So another few more weeks. We'll see how see how she looks.
Yeah, she looked good. She was stacked and everything you'd want. So
yeah.
I hope those clones stay for you. I think mine's gonna be good.
Yeah, we'll see. They're looking all right. And then I have three of the plants from you, the autos that are looking wonderful right now. They are overgrowing the solo cup, but the roots haven't hit the bottom yet. They're almost there. So, but they're looking really green, really pretty. The leaves are looking so nice. I just cannot wait to
Nice.
get those outside and watch those babies just flourish once we put them outside, probably this weekend. So I'm super stoked to see how this outdoor grow goes with three plants. Hopefully they're all females. I'm excited. If we get two females and one male, great. But if we get three females, even better because I want to watch those babies just go whoosh.
Nice. Yeah,
And
that's
yeah.
always nice. It's have you given them any food since they've been in those solos?
No, I have them in. I have not yet. I have them in a nutrient blend soil that's for younglings, as I call it. So doesn't say add any nutrients yet. So when I put them in the big pot outside is when I'll probably start adding some nooch to it. So and this is actually Mrs. Weedman's baby, so she wanted to grow some outside this year. So I'm just taking care of them in the tent, and then when she puts them outside, she just wants to see what happens. She's going to
Yeah.
do her best. So I'm hoping we get some good buds, man. If we get six, like I said, if we get like 6 feet tall plants, I'll be excited right at my fence line.
Yeah, yeah. Just plain them down,
So
down.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that'll be fun, dude. You guys can those newt samples I dropped off. You could definitely use on those.
Yeah, I'm gonna save that for my next indoor grow. I'm not gonna use that on the outdoor. I got some newts that I'll probably use for the outdoor stuff, but I'm excited about using your nutrient strain. Congratulations on that. You're about 3 weeks away, you said, right, for the new nutrient line to come out, or to get some testers to get going on. And I know I have some, so I'm excited to it.
Yeah, yeah. We finally made it public for testers, which is exciting, and we've been working on it for a long time, and it's kind of been a crazy few years for everybody. So sourcing everything that we had to source and waiting the extra weeks on everything, and we just it's exciting to actually have the product, be able to get it to some people. Some people are running it. I just started my first run with the new mixture, which is the same ratios as all the old stuff. It's just our newest mixture, the whole test mixtures, and so I'm making sure that we mixed them right and everything's good with them. But I'm real excited, man. It should be able to. We if it can work for everybody like it's been working for me, I'm really excited for people to see plants express themselves correctly, uh, and not there's some of the stuff on the other lines. I have to use so much stuff to kind of like negotiate it. That's not the right word, but to I don't want to use this, so I have to take out that product. I have to come in with these other products, and so I was able to drop about 6 or 7 bottles that I use and put them just into these two, and it's all the base, all the everything. So I'm really excited about it because when I do my reservoirs, I'm back with them. And it's like, oh yeah, done. Like I put my other few things in there. It's like, yes, done.
I'm excited about using it. I'm excited on my next grow. I'm going to use it. I think I'm going to, I don't know what pack that you gave me I'm going to use yet because I got a lot of different packs from you. So I don't know what I'm going to use it on yet. I haven't decided yet what I'm going to grow from you, but I'm excited about using it on this grow. So it'll be
Oh,
right
yeah.
after the eat's done and harvested and dried in the tent, and then I'll pull it out and start my next grow. So we'll go from there. So, but super stoked. So let's, you ready to get this show started, my friend?
Yeah, I'm really excited about today, dude. It's kind of
Yeah.
a
This one's a
recap of
little,
what's new.
yeah, little tricks and tips for operating a less than ideal garden. You and I have had plenty of talks, especially on this grow, but you and I always talk but about when I'm always growing. I always have a lot of questions, but this one I've had a little bit of struggle on keeping humidity because the temperature's been so weird, keeping temp correctly, because the temperature outside's been so weird that it reflects the inside of my house because sometimes you have to have the heat on high. Mrs. Weedman gets cold.
Yeah,
So, so it's now we haven't put the air on till just yesterday. So the house
same
was
here.
maintaining some really good stuff. I had to put an extra fan in there just to keep it at that temp I like. But then we put the air condition on and everything went all crazy. Humidity went up
The
a
humidity
little
went up.
bit. Yeah, humidity went up a little bit and temperature went down and then it went up again because the air goes off and then so it's been a wild ride it's very hard. It's hard when you grow indoors sometimes when you don't have just a room with the proper temperature at all times where you
Yeah.
can keep it at, so this is what this is all about. This
Yeah.
episode is some tips and tricks to when you have some issues. So um it's a rare things are perfect, and hopefully what we're going to talk about is going to recap a lot of stuff we have talked about, but go a little bit more in depth when you have certain issues that you need to fix. So these tips and tricks are going to help. So I know you talked about throwing a VPD chart for comparison and recommended. You'll probably throw it on your Discord if it's not already on there.
Yeah, it's on there. That's what we'll be going
Sweet.
off of today. Is just like
Sweet.
when it's like, hey, it should be this. That should be is just going to be following a vapor pressure deficit chart.
Sweet. So, why do we see so many different scenarios in a grow room? How come? How come it's just not? I mean, if you want to grow a real good plant or a great plant, you have to have everything the right way. So, why do we see so many different scenarios in a small little tent to a bigger tent, or even a small grow room? Maybe somebody's got they're using one of their bedrooms as a grow room. How come we see so many variances and stuff?
So to me, I think there's a few things, but one is we don't perfect any other plant. So I would assume any plant that we have just sitting in a window, just sitting out, not paying attention to any of its atmosphere really, would perform better if get put into a grow room. If given the humidity that it wants, and some plants are just really hardy. So I think that with weed, we get way more specific first off, and it creates these scenarios a little bit to where we say, well, if I run 60% humidity, I dry close to my flower room, and that is bumping up my dry humidity or whatever it is. There's so many weird correlations between everything, and it might be a correlation between in your room and not somebody else's. You might have a correlation between your AC turning on and off, and my garden might not see that very much, and there might be a million different reasons why. But I think that is really why we see everything. There's not just like different scenarios and different gardens. There's not one single garden out there that's exactly the same. They can be built exactly the same. They could be neighbors in adjacent warehouses. They're going to be close, but hardware breaks down at different rates. Winds come through at different rates. Different people are in and out. Equipment breaks. Like there's so much that you can start with 100% the same garden, quote unquote, same on paper, but it's eventually at least going to be very, very different, and everything can kind of correlate with everything.
So interesting. So interesting.
It's just it's something you really want to like predict almost. That's really what a great gardener is, a partner with their garden, and they can predict it. It's almost like even your partner at home. You know when your partner is a little hungry that there might be some cranky issues.
Hangry. I'm hangry.
You worked outside all day, everybody's been sweaty for 8 hours, and you come inside, it might not, maybe it wouldn't be the best time to make some kind of joke, or whatever it is. And you can kind of start to learn your garden like that too, to where you can know, okay, well, when it's warmer than this outside and I don't get a good airflow, my AC builds heat. I want to turn my lights down 15% because they're not going to keep up. I don't want it to be 90 degrees in here. So hopefully we can go. I think a lot of what we're going to go over today we've already kind of touched on, but we're going to say it a different way.
Nice. I love it.
So
I love it. Maybe this will even help Mr. Weedman here too himself with all his issues. And like I said, it's not always. It's just like I said, certain times. Like if I grow straight wintertime, everything stays usually pretty much the same. If I start to grow, like I started this grow, April? No, March. So it was cold. Still temperature. I like to keep the temp at the house temp. I like to keep it at like 70. Mrs. Weeman gets cold and then she bumps it up when I'm not home to 73, 74, and I get home and I'm like, So if you regulated the house on a regular basis, like if I had my house regulated and I started in straight winter and I know the temp's going to be 70 in my house all winter long, it's pretty easy to do. When I have to
Yeah.
go from winter to spring and you shut the heat off, say, because you got 60, 70-degree weather or 58 to 60, whatever, and you keep it, the windows open, that changes a lot of things,
Yeah.
and then you go now where I had some good, really, really good weather, and the house was staying at a good temperature at 68 with the windows open, and then all of a sudden it gets to 90 out today and you throw the air on and you keep it at 72 and next everything's all messed up again. So trying to grow within the seasons where if it's cold, grow all through the cold for somebody like me. So hopefully this is going to help everybody. So
Yeah. I think it's for there's anybody. The largest facility, dude, like it what happens outside changes inside. Like, and that's just what it is. It's air conditioners alone, the outside units have their optimum temperatures. Like my air conditioner every year has a little mini leak. It's very hard to find. Every year I have to pump it with Freon. But really, what happens is, the beginning of the summer, I pump it with Freon. It slowly releases. It gets less and less efficient. But as it gets colder, so it gets me through the summer. At least it's done this for 5 years. As it gets colder, I know I start to lose Freon because my AC isn't running as well. But I don't need it because it's colder outside.
right.
And it does some other stuff too, like you were talking, like humidities change. And going into this, there will be, we should talk about some things that are not just specific to problems, like predicting outside, knowing that the warmer it is, the more possibility for humidity there is. But that doesn't mean it will necessarily be more humid. It just means it could be. And so it's like if it's really warm and it hasn't rained for 14 days, it's probably not going to be that humid. It's probably going to be just really freaking warm.
That's another thing too. It's so dry right now. There's
Yeah.
been no humidity at all too. So you're trying to keep that humidity in that tent because
Yeah.
there's no humidity. You got to
In
crank it
there.
up a little bit
It
more.
zaps it out. It'll
Yep.
zap the humidity out. Your plant will perspire more. Your pots will dry out more. Like it's a big thing, Like it's something that if you can predict it and you can say, well, usually in my watering, I do this. Well, now I'm going to check on this 12 hours early, 24 hours early. It's really something. If you write it down, is the best way. I'm guilty of not doing that a lot, but definitely when I first started gardening, in my garden, I wrote everything down, and it was just like one of those things where it was like, okay, well, last year I had to get, and my AC guy even said, he's like, you don't have a problem yet, and I'm like, yeah, I know, but I'm going to, and I want to get my Freon topped off. And he's like, well, if you don't have a problem, I don't know if that's what, I don't know what to fix, basically. He's basically told me I was wasting my money. And I was like, well, I just want this to work. And as I
Right.
found that I could work with it, and I could say, okay, it's still a little warm, my AC isn't working super well, I can raise the humidity a little bit. I can maybe keep a couple extra fan leaves. I can maybe back my lights off. There's a lot of stuff we're going to go over that can kind of keep you in the VPD. And so the vapor pressure deficit is something, if you don't have a chart of it somewhere almost constantly pulled up on your phone as a gardener, you should. It is
Text that
huge.
to me. Text that to me, will you?
Yeah, sure. There's a lot of them online. They're all very similar. They're all doing the same thing. We've talked about it before. What that does is tells you that you're growing in the optimal conditions with temperature compared to humidity. So if you see somebody growing with 70% humidity in flower, they might not be wrong. It might be wrong for you, but they might be growing 85 degrees. And if you look at the VPT chart, let me pull this one up real quick. You look at the VPD chart, 80 degrees, you want it 70 to 75% humidity, 65 to 75% humidity.
Yeah.
Falls right in the sweet spot. So it's like, and we've talked about it too. The humidity, a lot of people are scared of getting above the 50 and 60%, but really, it's not that humidity that's going to destroy you. If you have airflow, if you don't have airflow, you can, airflow is everything, which we'll talk about. But it's the changing humidities. It's going from humid to not humid. That's where, first off, powdery mildew likes to grow. It likes to grow because it can spread when it's really dry, and it can
Now, hold
bind
on.
to.
You should talk about powder. Is the powder mildew? Does that go on the like? You could see it on the soil. Like, is it like white,
No,
or is it more the plant?
it is a plant disease. It gets into your plant. Your plant starts to grow out white spores. If you look at these spores up close, it looks like almost like a plant planted into the plant. They grow through the pores of the leaf, and it eventually takes it up all the area for the plant. The plant can't photosynthesize right there. But
Gotcha.
when it goes dry, those spores can float everywhere, disattach themselves, float everywhere. When it's humid, that's how they like to grow. So when you have that fluctuation, a little powdery mildew can become a huge problem like overnight. And you can see people who have problems with powdery mildews. What they do is they go in and they spray at night, and they're like, it was worse than when I sprayed. And it's because they spray at night. Humidity is outrageous. The day comes, the lights zap the room, and now your powdery mildew, and then it is worse. It gets worse. But you can have a plant that has that disease, and it cannot show symptoms if you are controlling your atmosphere correctly. Now, it might at some point, but you can get through a whole grow if your plant can fight it. Basically, it's like what we compared it to. It's kind of crude, but we can always compare it to herpes in the shop, because just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not there. If you're healthy enough, if you can fight it off, it's not there. You're not seeing it, but it doesn't mean it's not there. And if you're not seeing it, it's not spreading. But as soon as it gets there, it can go everywhere, kind of shit.
Gotcha.
Hopefully that's a good comparison. I don't know a ton about, but it's just by controlling your atmosphere, you can, it's like almost an IPM preventative, So, something else that goes without saying, but we should say it, is choosing a cultivar, choosing a plant, choosing a cross, a strain, whatever you want to call it, wisely is huge. If you know you have a problem in your garden, choose something that adapt. Find the plants that work well. If you know it's going to be too humid, find plants where breeders say, "Hey, this is resistant to mold. They're out there. This is resistant to that." Or hunt them yourself. If you can't get clones, you're gonna have to hunt it yourself anyway. You're gonna have to find. Oh well, I heard this is resistant to mold. You're gonna have to find it. You're gonna have to hunt through it. You're gonna have to find the one that is strongest and you hope is resistant to mold. However you can do it. Unfortunately, that happens a lot accidentally. That's happened to me accidentally, where I had clones where a white mold grew out of the cubes. One strain, four different, sisters of that strain, not touched. Everything else ate up overnight. I was like, wow, what's the other excuse? They're all sitting right next to each other. This cross is mold resistant, or at least that mold.
Right.
So, ask your breeder. If your breeder doesn't know, I would urge everyone to support the breeders out there that are really doing stuff like that, or are taking the time to talk to you and help you. A breeder, a crosser, a pollen checker, or whatever, they make these things that are supposed to be medicine, but if you're purchasing something where there's 5 million of them made, I'm not hating on anybody. You get what you can get, but it's just to me, there's such a higher value in knowing the person who made it, talking with them, saying, what can I at a bare minimum, they should know what different flavors and different structures and stuff a plant should have.
They
But
grew it. They
yeah,
grew
exactly. They grew the parents. They probably grew the parents, at least one side. So that's just huge right off the bat. If you get something that is really, if you needs to have something that's like a light whore that really wants to pump out and just beast out, and you're running 120-watt light, it's that's not a super good example, but it's still going to be something where you're like, wow, I got this because it said you could grow 3 pounds of plant, but you're running 120-watt light. there's these things there that you have to know. That's not so much cultivar based, but there's just certain things there that you have to have to do. And a good breeder is going to help you through that. They're going to be able to say, well, yeah, I've gotten a pound of plant, or I get whatever it is. I get this much. This is a big yielder. They're going to help you through that shit. So,
That's
and
why that's why I got you, babe. I
I
got
try.
you.
Hopefully, it helps most of the time. And sometimes because everything's so different, like you were saying, sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's like, especially since we're sharing weed more than ever. There's more diseases and different shit going on out there. It seems like
Oh, I
you
read
could,
that. I read that article in last night's show again after we talked about it with Deep Roots. I read another article. 90% of farms and
dude,
plants in California have the viroid
that's just
disease. Is what they're
that's.
saying.
And I wonder how that's not like so noticeable from what we know of that disease. Or at least I've never been in like encounter with it, but it's like they called it originally a dudding off. Like you don't call something dudding off and then be like, hey, yeah, the whole 90% of the market's dudding off, and like I don't, you know what I mean? Like
That's
it's
a
so
that's a
crazy.
lot.
That's a
I mean,
lot.
hopefully somebody listening to this episode or the episode we recorded last night hears that and tells me the truth. Is it really that bad, or
Yeah,
is
what's
it
going
just
on?
being over exaggerated? So I don't know. I did say that on the show last night. So I'm like, if anybody knows, send me an email or a DM or something like that. I'd like to know if this is the truth or not. So,
Yeah,
but this is like the fifth or sixth article I've read, about how bad it is, and then also having Deep Roots on to explain what it is
yeah,
made a little bit more sense. So,
for
yeah.
sure.
So I don't know.
Yeah,
Weird.
no, for sure.
Airflow.
It's scary, bro.
How important is airflow? You talk
Oh,
about that
dude,
a lot with me.
another universal thing that you just, if your plants aren't getting burned, you want air, like then you want every as much as you can without burning your plants is my whole theory. Every leaf should be moving a little bit. Every corner and nook and cranny should have. I personally really like using inline fans and ducting them, especially like around corners. And I'll even like leave the ducting, like I won't fasten it for like the last foot, and it makes itself wave up and down a little
Hmm.
bit. It works so well. Like gets all my walls and it like rotates my room like a tornado. And I basically have my AC blast my dehu, which is also my intake from my veg, which is hot and humid, and they all blast in one corner and just like disperse. And like air wall fans, floor fans, as much as you can get around. In my opinion, if you have a 2x4 tent, if you can like finagle a little box fan underneath, I really like pointing up
Hmm.
or down. And get a box fan, get an inch on each side of it so it can move some air a little bit. I love it, especially in a drying tent facing down. I like it a lot.
Yeah,
You have to
usually
worry about things falling on it.
usually when I do my drying, I take my fan that's usually one of my fans that's usually up top blowing down. I take that and put that all the way down to the bottom and have it just blow straight across. It's not hitting the buds at all. It's just like all the way
Yeah.
at the bottom, just blowing at the bottom, like creating like a whirlwind at the bottom.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, yeah, that's really like it doesn't need to be a drastic draft everywhere, but the more circulation you have, the better you can read your room. And that's just like
Why is it so important? Why is airflow so important?
because it takes out your pockets. We'll talk about it here in a second, but everywhere is a little different in your room. Everywhere you have areas of intense light. You have areas where AC is coming out, dehumidifiers are coming out, corners. Like everywhere in your grow area is different. And if you don't have ACs and dehumidifiers, it might be a little bit more stable, but you at least have a light, And so at night might be the only time it's stable temperature wise. But if you don't have something outside that tent and some air circulating into that tent, well, your humidity is going to spike like a motherfucker at night, at least bare minimum.
It
So
does. I noticed that in my tent
yeah,
too. I have to right now. At certain points, I have to shut the humidifier off because it gets right now because it's in flower. It gets too high at night, and there's
yeah,
nothing helping. That I mean, of course, there's airflow going in through there, but it makes me nervous. So I usually shut it off at night and just spray the walls. You
yeah, the
know,
humidifier. Yeah, and that's just what it does at night. And it's excuse me, it's not as important for the physical growth or the health of the plant at night, but it's definitely important for like stopping mold production and different things from powdery mildew, like we just talked. That's probably the biggest thing to me. Like I have had people give me plants that they had no idea had powdery mildew, and I get them into a different situation, different atmosphere, whatever you want to call it. I have something different, and it just springs up. And it's like it's weird. It's a I think it's a health thing because there are products that boost the plant's immunity to it. So when the plant's super healthy, super happy, I've noticed which cause you need to be in VPD for that. Maybe not need to, but it really helps. Um, it's way easier to fight or prevent getting an infection.
Gotcha.
So that's huge. It's airflow. Airflow to me is if you don't have airflow, you can't properly read your room to know what else you need. So you can be sitting there saying, "Oh my, my room's really warm," and you're checking under the lights, and it's like, yeah, it's gonna be really warm under the lights, or my room's not warm enough is more common, but you don't check under your light, especially back in the bulb days, because it'd be fucking a million degrees under there. So your room needed to be 60 degrees because under that freaking light, it was going to be like 85. And, especially running a basement, you got 8 feet to work with. You need a foot or two between the lights. Like, shit would get wild. And airflow was the only way to cool off over your flowers. Or they would just burn up, So airflow, airflow, airflow. If you don't want to buy an AC, if you don't want to buy a DHU, airflow, you can probably figure it out by putting a fan in there, doing something different. You can probably work it out, and that's what we're going to go over today. Is it too warm? We'll try some of this shit, see if you can't normalize it to this. It's all about getting into the VPD numbers. So too warm also means not humid enough.
Remember that, everyone. VPD.
Vapor pressure deficit.
So what do you do if your tent or your grow room or your basement where you're growing? What do you do if it's too warm?
Okay, so for me, and this is all, give us tricks. If we don't say some tricks you like, you should send them to us because I'd love to hear some. So for me, I like to turn my lights down or even put them into segments of turning them off. I have my lights running on multiple different timers in different ways. And so I have the ability of like turning half of them off at one time. So I will do that for like, so in the situations where it's really warm out, my AC can't keep up. Something's going on, whatever it is, and it's getting a little too warm. I really like to have a portion of my lights go off for 15 minutes every 2 hours. It doesn't mess with any of the nighttime, daytime of everything. Most of my lights are still on. It doesn't. It's just a quick reprogramming on the light timer. Super easy. So by a lot of my lights too, I can program to turn them down. So sometimes I'll do that if it's something where like I have drastic differences in height, canopy height, and I'm like, well, I don't think this light over here is going to get this bank or something stupid, I will just go through my app and dim them. I do that less often than turning off every couple hours. But this might be super obvious, but you can add cooling. You can add an AC. They make 1-ton ACs that are little portable.
I seen the little mini one that's
Yeah,
supposed to like cool, like supposed to work really well. I read about it. I was like, oh, maybe I need that, but not yet. It's my
does it
room
run on
kids.
water?
Yes.
Yeah, I've seen some that it's like almost like a cooling humidifier. So I've never used something like that, but I have seen people. I think they used to call them like hillbilly air conditioners in 5-gallon buckets, and they're pretty cool. What you do is you put a fan in the lid of a 5-gallon bucket. You put holes like midway through the 5-gallon bucket on the side. The fan blows down, and then you put ice in the bucket. fan hits the ice, cold air blows out. It would probably raise humidity also. So it's probably doing something similar. But I have personally used that and seen that, and it doesn't last all night. A cooler works better if you can salvage one, um, but it will get you through. Like, oh shit, it's gonna be 100 today. What can I do? You know, I've done with ice. You can do a lot of stuff. You can even throw it on top of your pots if you're running cocoa or something. But another thing, run your shit at night. It's always cooler at night.
It's
Run it at
true.
night. You know, try to, if you're not putting in your air conditioner yet and you have an outside unit, try to put it somewhere where it's going to get a lot of airflow. Run it at night. You're not, even if it's 90 degrees out, you get that airflow around it. It's going to be pretty efficient and run pretty well.
I never, yeah, that's, I mean, like I said, when I'm running, you know, the flour, the veg, I mean, it's going in through the night to like, usually I start, lights are on at 9, go off at 3 a.m., you know, and you could tell the difference in the temperature when you're going to bed, checking on your plants versus during the day. Huge difference. Yeah.
I'm almost solely run at night because of that. Because it's even during, it hasn't been really ridiculously cold where I usually when you think of Michigan is you're like, oh, it's so cold. But the last few winters haven't been really ridiculously cold. That's the only time I'll go today because of my AC. Like sometimes you just can't get it to work when it's really cold.
Right.
But it just makes more sense at night. And a lot of places too have peak hours now. That is not during the night. That's usually from like 2 p.m. to 7 p.m. or some shit. That's not, you know. So if you're running your lights, you know, midnight to noon or 11 to 11, you know, 11 p.m. to 11 a.m. or something, like it's going to help a lot. It'll help with if it's in your house too. It'll help with like the load on your house AC and cooling your house also.
Cool. That's
But
great to
yeah,
know.
if it's warm, focus on some airflow over your flowers. You don't want it to. So if it's not humid enough in there, you might want to watch out for this because it will. But if you can get the humidity up, just make sure those lights, like, because if it's warm in your room, under your lights is warmer. Just know this. Put your lights further away. You know, like add airflow underneath them. Get that if your room's gonna be warm, just make sure that you can bring, you know, you're not really scorching your flowers with the light. LED, that's not as detrimental. But when you get in a little tent, dude, if you're not circulating the air well, I know we already talked about the air and how it's gonna help literally every situation, but a tent will heat up. You know, a couple 100 watts running in a tent, like that shit will
Yeah,
heat
it
up.
does heat up. I know it. I see it. So
Um, Another thing, if it's too warm, simply find a way to keep the humidity increased. You don't want it going up and down, but just figure out a way. You know, it could be something as simple as feeding during. You know, you can figure out your hours and follow a chart, or just check it every hour or two. Your initial grow, or your initial week of your initial grow, your initial week and your third week, and you know, just the more you can write down and follow. But your lights turn on hour after your lights turn on. Water if you have it on, if you can by hand. If you have it on a reservoir, works way easier. And then follow your room when it starts to get too dry again. It's time to water again. That really only works with cocoa or hydro. If you can get cocoa, is gonna, for me it would be like it for sure works with cocoa. Water it again. You can adjust your feedings. You can adjust if your water. Oh, well, I'm feeding more water. Well, let's turn the food down a little bit. Well, I'm getting more runoff. Well, let's bump the food up a little bit. Like you're not gonna have your buildup. Like you won't be banking on the buildup as much because you're running it through more. Whatever, you know,
gotcha.
you can figure it out, and that can really help, you know, balance out your humidities. And then also one of the last things I really like to do for being too warm is over defoliate a little bit. Really get the leaves out of there. Take that one leaf where I'd be like, I don't know, take it. Um, Try
There's
to
always
get
that
the
one. You're
air
like, oh,
through
it's
there
so
as much as
pretty.
possible. You know, just to try to, you know, you don't want the pockets sitting in there. You don't want all that stuff, and that the defoliate well really comes all the way back to airflow. If you have 50 leaves blocking it, light is not going to get through there. Air is not going to get through there, but a bug might possibly. Some mildew spore might pop up in there. If you, especially if your plant already has a disease and you just don't know it. Um, So who freaking knows? But yeah, for too warm, dude, that was a lot, I think. But those are my little tricks that I like to do that keep me in my vapor pressure deficit numbers.
So what about too wet? What do you do when it's too wet?
So too wet. A lot of people might think too warm and too wet correlate. They definitely can. They definitely do in most cases. But warm air just means it can hold more. It doesn't mean it necessarily does, like we talked. Like deserts are not very humid; they're very warm. If you put a pool in the middle of the desert, it would evaporate very quickly because it's so warm. It will be the air can physically take more moisture away. So too wet doesn't necessarily mean too warm, but it can get like that. Sometimes you want that with your VPD. So hopefully I don't mention it too many more times, but add some freaking airflow, dry that shit out, vent that shit out, or in. I prefer the vent out because you can create a negative pressure. Negative pressure, you can run that negative pressure through an air filter, carbon filter. You can make an ozone box, one of my favorite. I think it's underutilized. Ozone box, look it up. Super nice for getting rid of smell. You just have to vent it outside or into a room nobody's going to be breathing. Um, but it works really, really well. You don't have to buy filters over and over again. It's a bulb that might burn out once every few years, but works super well. So venting out or in, pull new air in, has to go out somewhere. You're definitely gonna get a smell that way, but sometimes it doesn't matter.
I like
Um,
the smell.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So sometimes that doesn't matter. Just literally physically push more in the air in there, puff that tent up, good to go. Um, kind of like using the water with the lights when it's too dry. Use the lights with the water when it's too wet. So water at times, like don't water at night. Don't water close to night. If it's really wet in there, your plants aren't going to the if it's wet, more wet than normal, you'll find your pots will hold a little bit more moisture. So you might not have to water, you might find in your garden you like to run 80 degrees and 60% humidity because it allows you to only have to water twice during the day to hold a very steady humidity and temperature. That might be your garden setup. I
Hmm.
like it's possible. So using your lights, or using these tricks in general and a few of them together, you might be able to really lock things in. Um, Captain Obvious, add a freaking dehumidifier and AC. It's always easy, we don't have to talk about this. We have to say it, I think, but this episode's about like not being able to control it and what to do, and so, but a dehu and AC, you want to run a perfect room and you got the money, go get a humidifier, go get a dehumidifier, and go get an AC that can cover your lights and those things plus a little.
Always
And
got
you're
to add
gonna,
that plus a little.
yeah, plus a little, and get some fans. Make sure you're throwing the wattage of your fans. Make sure you throw in the wattage. Like, make sure you get that shit right. And if you get that the right equipment, and the heat that you're going to be putting out and all that stuff, you're going to be okay. Like you're not going to be running into like the atmosphere. You're going to be able to dial in your atmosphere probably. But um, one way I see tents being very wet is around them. Like I mean, I think tents in general, but if you can get too wet, that can be a drain. If you're draining to the floor to a drain that's just like open there, which I've seen a fuck ton of times, it's gonna be too wet. Like that's just what it is. You're open draining. If you have water that's coming in the basement wall a lot, it's gonna be pretty humid a lot. Controlling the atmosphere is gonna be harder. You can get a real big dehu and say, hey, I'm gonna yeah, let it happen. I'm gonna pop it. It's not gonna matter, and maybe that's what it is, but it's definitely harder. So around the tent area, around the grow area, try to get anything wet up. Try to no standing water for sure. Like hopefully that goes without being said, but and same as dry or same as warm. And one of my last tips would be just to foliate well. I know we already talked about that, but get those. When when things aren't perfect, make sure you're at least letting air get to places and letting things get balanced out a little bit. So defoliate well, get those humidity pockets out of your canopy, off of your flowers, get the fan going up there, all that stuff. So that would be my personal tips or what I do when it's a little too wet in the garden.
What about when it's too fucking dry?
Too fucking dry. We'll go the other way with it. So, I mean, a lot of it's self-explanatory, I think, especially after going over too wet. You can use a spray for sure. That's one thing we didn't. You can't do it. You can't spray to make it less humid. But it's literally having a hand crank sprayer, especially in a tent, spray down like on this pot on near the stems. I wouldn't spray the flowers. Spray the bottom. Let that humidity rise a little bit. You might be able to find that on really hot, humid days, you have to do that once or twice, and you can keep a perfect garden. And you might not be able to do it once or twice, but that's going to be able to keep your perfect garden. So you do it as much as you can. Just knowing and trying to get there, that's what it's all about. We all start at 100 and we just want to finish in the 90s. We just want to get an A.
There you go.
Use your watering. You can use your watering just like when it's too hot. And the way we were talking before, fucking have that shit. Let's say it's too dry for whatever reason, something crazy is going on, and it's getting too dry at night. Yeah, it's weird to water at night, but fucking do it. Water. Follow your chart. They make hygrometers that will literally chart shit out. They make stuff that hook up to apps. They have all kinds of cool stuff out there. Do a little research on it, and follow those times and say, well, for whatever reason, 2 hours roughly after the night cycle goes, I have a huge drop in humidity. And there you might be dealing with a room, let's say it has an intake and is really close to the furnace, and it's zapping out all the humidity. And you say, well, my fix to this, I'm just going to water, because that's going to I'm going to water right at in that time area. It'll zap out some of the humidity. It'll be able to last in whatever it is, So use your watering, and you might be surprised at really where you can control that.
Go from there.
Yeah. So very contrary to what we've been saying, if it's too dry, slow the air down a little bit. Maybe you want everything to be moving, but maybe slow it down. Just too dry, too hot. Too dry really, and too much air is no bueno. Let some extra leaves hang out, maybe. Let some humidity collect down in the, maybe do the opposite of the too wet. Let that kind of chill a little bit more. At least I like to when I notice it's a little too dry, or if I think it's going to be too dry in my room. I don't typically have that problem, but it can be a problem.
Interesting.
But yeah, that's I know there's definitely some other stuff. We already talked about airflow, bringing air in and out, but that's
just so everybody knows, so we don't have to talk about it again. Proper airflow is what you need.
Everything.
What about when it's too cold? What the fuck do you do when it's too cold? Give it a jacket or something?
That'd be nice. I mean, the old can of jacket. That does sound good. So follow your VPD. Lower your humidity a little bit. Try to make sure you're chilling in there for your plant, even if you can't stabilize it. Trying to get your plant down in there and keep it there as much as possible is gonna help. The no-brainer answer, like we've had on everything, get a heater. The big thing with heaters, make sure most heaters, especially the smaller ones, are going to glow somewhere. Be careful. That shit will destroy you. But if you're in a tent, throw a little heater right outside the tent near wherever your air is going in with your circulation, and you can definitely heat it up for pretty cheap. Get your lights a little closer. Heat comes out of your lights. Try to balance that out. Read it at the top of your lights and top of your flowers. Try to get that down a little bit. Too cold, I don't see a lot of people struggle with, but it can, just because we don't see it, if we were growing in northern Canada, we'd probably see that. So it's just not where we are. Again, you can keep your plants a little bit more leafy, and you can drop your airflow a little bit with too cold. At least I would try to let that plant keep a little bit of its heat. Try to let it kind of like blanket itself, if you would. Um, my personal opinion, of course, for when it gets too cold. So, if you guys have any, I don't have, like I said, a lot of personal experience with it being too cold, but if people have some tips, you should let us know. I'd love to hear people's
Send us some
opinions.
tips.
That'd be cool.
Do we need to talk about airflow? I think we talked about it enough. Just to always remember, defoliate. Try at least the fan areas. Try to at least fan areas off. Add airflow. Anything broken stand, fan on the side. Airflow, airflow, airflow.
Anything.
What about plants being too large?
So it's a little different. So
I want my plants to. I want my buds to be large.
yes. Well, it's like it's that can be some of the worst, especially if you get a stretcher. You get a plant that doesn't stop growing. There's plants out there that won't stop growing until week 6, 7 in flower.
That happened to me with
It'll
Majin Vegeta.
destroy you.
Majin Vegeta overgrew the whole fucking tent. I mean, I
Dude.
couldn't stop. Remember we were talking? I was like, and I got some monster fucking nugs on this thing. I mean, I did a little video on Sunday with this. I mean, I got some like monsters.
Bad.
But this thing, remember, I was like, dude, this thing, I can't get it to stop growing. And I got no more room. My lights are already up to the top. They were outgrowing the lights. They were just all over the fucking place. I was like, holy shit.
Well,
so too large.
In that situation, you probably didn't know it was going to be too large,
No.
So if you know, you can top your plant. Give it maybe an extra week, I'd say, in veg. It really depends on how hard you top it. But give it a little recoup time, take it into flower, it's going to be fine. Typically, I don't see any problems with anything like that. But you don't know, right? So usually you don't, if you don't know it's going to be too big, it's the first time you're growing it, it doesn't stop growing until week 7. Tie them down. Don't be afraid. I think they call that low stress training a lot of times. Don't be afraid to low stress or high stress train. I will high stress train if I can get to the stem and I have a flower that's it's too close to the light, and I can high stress train it in the middle of flower, and it just means like it's going to be set like this. I will do that to get that lower and flat and get it 3 inches away from the light. If I can get there. A lot of times it's too strong and I can't, or it's too connected and I can't get there, and I'll try to like tie it down a little bit or pull it down a little bit. That's where it's the trellis. I love the double trellis technique is by far my favorite technique. That's where you run 2 layers. Bottom layer is used to stretch. Top layer is used to support. So you run your bottom layer, you can stretch your plant out to the area you want. If you got a long branch going in, stretch it farther. It just covers more area. So it can be a way to take these large plants, put it on the right side of your tent, have it plant out to the left side of your tent, most of it, take that inside small stuff, have that go straight up, take the rest of it to the side, and you can all of a sudden trellis and have an even canopy just by working a trellis well going into flower.
When I get a better grow area, I'm definitely going to do that double one because it's amazing.
It works really well. I sometimes shit happens and I'll go bamboo or green string alone or something, but the trellis is just so nice. It's so nice but one thing that people I don't see talk about a lot is manipulating their lights for this. So if your plant's a little too big, try running only 10 hours of light when you flip it. That's going to tell this plant, like, bro, it is time to flower right now. Run it like that for the first week or two. 10 hours on, 14 hours off. You might be able to get, if this is a 5-week stretcher, you might be able to narrow that down to 3 weeks. You might be able to really jump, kick in that flowering initiation, and it also will give it less light to actually grow. So, and with that, put the plants a little closer to the light. Let them feel a little bit more heat. Let your plant say, man, when I get closer, I'm getting a little bit more uncomfortable. So they don't want to grow quite as quickly. But
Because
that's typically what I try.
when you have the lights a little far away, they're stretching for that light, so they're growing more because they're going for it, right? Just like when they're outdoors in the sun,
Exactly.
they're going for that sun, so they're stretching towards that sun.
Yeah, exactly.
What about if plants are too small, little mini me's, no
Well,
mini
baby.
me?
So plants too small really is not a problem for a lot of people unless you're in a facility and you're following a very strict timeline and you're saying, well, if I don't get my 6 yield out, I'm not going to hit my bonus or whatever it is. So a lot of us can just say, veg it a little longer, you know? But let's say that's not an option. Let's say you don't have the extra week or two. Let's say, you're already popped seeds and this has to go now because you got 8 weeks only and you're not even sure, whatever. Boost your food. Try to boost your food up with that, your CO2 and your light. So if that means your light has to be closer, try to get that a little closer. Get some more airflow over it to get the heat out of there and boost your humidity up a little bit. The CO2, if you have a smaller area, the mushroom bags, I've used. I didn't when I used them. I didn't measure the CO2, but I definitely felt like my plants liked it. Um, whether I got a way bigger yield, I don't know, but the quality was better for sure. When I started using a tank where I could say, "Hey, I want it to be within the CO2 range," definitely noticed an increase in size. Definitely noticed a increase in quality, and it needed tweaks. It needed more par. It needed more food. Um, it was more sensitive to being outside of VPDs, stuff like that. But too small, blast some food. Give it some CO2. Give it some light. Give it what it needs to grow, and give it some space. Let it feel like it has room to grow. Put the goldfish in the big tank, not the little tank. Let it grow. And the opposite of too big, move those lights. I know you want it to get more par, but maybe move the lights farther away to get the stretch a little bit. Maybe do a little bit of both. Do normal, do a little farther away. Do it a little closer, do a little farther away. See how your plant's going to react to it. See if you can't get it to stretch a little bit, fill in a little bit of some space. Throw the double trellis up there, stretch it out. Might be able to work pretty well. I don't know.
Hell yeah, hell yeah. What about plants being uneven,
Big and
lopsided,
small.
lopsided?
Big and small. That happens a lot. If you're hunting seeds, that probably happens more times than they're nice. Like everything's goofy. Uneven, I really like to use milk crates or 5-gallon buckets. I just prop those little bastards up. Sometimes you get that grower, and they go in uneven and they can catch up. Sometimes you don't. Having the 5-gallon bucket's a little taller, the milk crate's a little shorter. Being able to just give them a little booster can help a lot sometimes. And you can use the lights with that too. You have a panel, make one side a little lower than the other side. You have one side where the plants are only 2 foot tall, the other side where the plants are 4 foot tall. Lower that one side down, kind of angle it out, pull it to the side, like do whatever you need. Push your tray a little farther away, whatever you can do to get some more light down there. Is what I personally do in my garden.
Yeah, you got that nice where you can angle your lights and shit. It was pretty fucking fire.
Yeah, every like 3 footish by 4 footish, 2.5 footish by 4 footish has a different light. So as long as I can fill that area with a light that's pretty similar in size, or a plant that's similar in size, I can do whatever I want with the light being far or close or however. It works really really well for me.
I like it. I like it a lot when I see those lights all in the angles. Makes me nervous in my tent though. I don't know why, but I'm an idiot. What about plants finishing at different times? That's a catchy one, especially if you're in a small tent and you're trying to capture a couple of things going on. It's hard when you only have one tent. We were talking about this the other day with the yesterday with my clones. I don't have the proper setup for the clones, because I'm in flower, and my
clones are flowering.
Yeah, they're flowering right now, so it's tough, And I also have seedlings growing that are going outside, but they can do the 12-12. But once they're outside, because they're autos, which is kind of nice, so it doesn't matter fucking what time it is. They're
Yeah.
just loving the 12 hours of light they're getting. So,
Oh, yeah, they
but
will.
yes, my three clones, two of them are flowering. One of them like has monstrous white hair. I told you the one looks fucking like the elephant weed. It's like fucking
Delusional.
crazy looking, crazy looking. Just like, but then it's got a bunch of leaves and then a bunch of white hairs coming all over the fucking place. And I'm just like, look at this thing, fucking
To
crazy.
eat.
Yeah, it's to eat.
That's funny. Yeah,
So
plants are
what do you
nuts.
do? What do you do?
So there's a few things, One thing when you're watering, uh, if you're hand watering, look at how you're adding food. If you're flushing and like say you use a 5 gallon bucket, uh, you use the do it normal, but use your flush water and then add your nutrients, kind of shit. In a reservoir, it gets a little bit more tricky. What I personally do is I do as much as I can with my reservoir and substitute with hand watering. Um, it's just if I have three plants that I have to be flushing that are in their last week, like it's even those last couple weeks. Usually, I take it off the reservoir because I'm trying to go through a transition. I'm dropping that nitrogen out heavy compared to anything earlier flower. Like it has to, So being conscious of the food that's in your finishing plant would be huge there. I like to use autoflowers too. Autoflowers are great for something like just like you said, like you have one tent, an autoflower doesn't give a fuck. You have amount of time with it,
No,
and
we
it's
should
gonna
make sure.
flower
We
during
should
that
make
time.
sure. We should make shirts that say "No fuck autos."
Yeah, yeah.
Autos don't
Well,
give a
fuck. Oh
fuck.
yeah. They don't give a fuck. Honey badger, autoflower, the honey badger of cannabis. Don't give a fuck.
None given.
They don't. They're just gonna go. They might be 6 inches tall, and they're gonna grow their little flower, and they're gonna fucking show the world what they got.
Hey man, I'm telling you.
Using that trellis can particularly make finishing at different times tricky. So I substitute with green string there. I tie it up before I cut the trellis down. I put some green string going across the area it's looking like I'm going to be cutting out. And then I cut my shit out. And sometimes I have to do some emergency quick maintenance but usually just replace the
CPR,
supports and I go.
CPR,
Yeah.
CPR,
Usually it's
CPR.
the green string broke. Or I didn't have it right, or usually it's just me fucking something up, but it works most of the time. but yeah, dude, that's the big thing on finishing at different times. Do not be feeding your finishing plant flowering nutrients. Like at a bare minimum, get that fucking nitrogen out of there because you are gonna just hate your life. You're gonna hate your flower. You're gonna hate any wax that comes out of it. It's gonna be dark green. It's gonna be nasty tasting. Um, so figure out how to get that flushing plant, that finishing last couple weeks plant different with your different finishing times.
What about running multiple strains and using only one nutrient blend, which somebody like
That's hard.
myself kind of does,
Yeah,
But I add amendments, and stuff along the way, in certain periods of the grow. So I do add some different stuff to it, but my straight nutrients are kind of the same. Your my NPK is like I'm not gonna switch. I've been using it. I like it.
yeah.
It's good until I use yours on the next grow. Then I'm really excited. So
Oh, bro, I'm so geeked for you because mine's gonna allow you to control the potassium way better, and you're gonna be fucking loving it.
nice. So what about using one nutrient blend?
So for me, I like, and it's not just using that one nutrient blend at this point, but I like having an NPK product all on its own. Something that I can add for just nitrogen, something I can add for just phosphorus, something I can add for just potassium. It makes everything so easy. With my particular blends, I also like a calcium, more CalMag. But that's just me. For me, that helps so much because it allows me. Now you have to pay attention to your micros, right? So that's huge. But it allows me to kind of drop down different products and replace them with the food my plant still needs, so I can drop out the nitrogen very efficiently and still keep my calcium, even though I'm running a calcium nitrate base, or calcium nitrate A, or whatever your line is. So, if you drop out your part, I think it's a part A. If you drop out your calcium nitrate in your, if you run a powder amendment A B, one of those parts is probably calcium nitrate. If you drop that shit out, you're dropping out the nitrogen. Cool, that's what you want. But you're also dropping out the calcium. You need that shit for transition,
Where do
especially
you real quick? Sorry to interrupt. Where do you drop out the nitrogen? Just to explain to people, what part? When do you totally take it out? What week?
So it always wants a little bit, and there's almost always a little bit hidden. Um, Even in the line that we made, there's still not in both parts A and B. There's still some nitrogen. And we had to do that because that allows us to control it a little better.
And that's where
Um,
you see on the bottle, some of the bottles say like 1, which is your nitrogen, or
yep.
0 because you're not adding any. But usually, like I'm using one that has a 1 on it right now.
So
So
there's a little bit of nitrogen. That's probably a bloom product if it has that little of
yep,
nitrogen.
yep.
So for me, I as soon as I get into flower, my nitrogen drops a little bit. But I start to do a severe decrease. I run almost everything 10 weeks. Really like halfway through week 5. If things are a little tall or something, I might drop at the beginning of week 5, or I might wait till the end. Things are a little small, something like that. Just I start to drop it down. By week 8, I'm really running very very low nitrogen, and week 9 is 0, and week 10 is 0. So week 10
That
and
makes
9 are
sense.
almost straight flushes. Nine's a very, very low ppm pre-flush for me. I try to just kind of influence the plant to do some stuff through a pH adjustment, which is another huge thing, for running multiple different plants on one nutrient blend, using your pH. So you got your one base, but you're saying, man, I wish I could add some more potassium to this. Well, potassium's probably there. Try to maybe change your nutrient, your pH a little bit. If you drop your pH down a little bit, and we'll just get on the chart, so I'm not misquoting anything. But well, maybe if you drop your pH down a little bit, you can encourage the uptake of potassium a little bit by discouraging the uptake of some other nutrients. Um, I There's charts they make that are really cool. The one that I like to go off of is Blue Lab. Personally, Blue Lab's been a very great company for me, but they went when Monsanto and all that first started taking over as Hawthorne Gardening Company. There was a period, I don't know if it's still going on, I don't know, whatever, but they were exclusive through Monsanto. Um, so I went to a different uh, company for my pH meters and stuff like that. But Blue Life has a very cool pH chart that shows all of the different nutrients and at the acidities that they're going to be most uptakeable, least uptakeable, stuff like that. So you can do little things like bumping up phosphorus for flower. A lot of people add extra phosphorus. Well, you could raise your pH a little bit. If you're especially if you run cocoa and you're not getting above 6.0 in flower, bump that shit up a little bit. Get that up to like 6.2, 6.3 weeks, like 3 to 6.
Give it a little bump,
A
little
little
bumpity
bit.
bump.
And at the beginning, at the end of flower, try bumping that down a little bit. Try to encourage the uptake of that. And this is based off of what I like to do. I hope I'm not getting the science wrong in that. But what I learned and what I've seen is that when I lower that pH, it encourages, and I do add a little potassium, my potassium uptake, and when I raise it, it encourages my phosphorus uptake, and that's how I use it a lot.
Sweet,
So, yeah.
I like it. I like it a lot.
Always between 5'5" and 6'5", but still, fuck around
There
and
we
find
go.
out.
Yeah, there we go. There we go. Man, that was a good hour.
That was a. I hope I wasn't boring anybody too much. I think we said a lot of that, but I think we said it differently, and I'm excited we can go back over it. And I'm excited about what we talked about, what we have coming, and kind of like some of the transition episodes we are gonna do, like clone to veg, and some other stuff, and kind of keep it along our personal train. I'm excited about that.
Yeah, and then we got some great friends and guests coming on too.
Yeah.
We got some big shit coming on, everybody. So,
It'll be fun.
man, Big Earl, you got anything else to say before we say goodbye?
If you had the CalMag, you really don't have to worry about your atmosphere, guys. So there's more CalMag.
Or your airflow.
None of it. Throw away your fan, buy another gallon of CalMag, throw it on the shelf with the other ones. You're fucking good.
You're golden. Everybody out there, don't forget the CalMag. Peace! Check out our cannabis lifestyle brand online at 8decades.com. Our custom smokes and accessories are perfect for your coffee table, bedroom nightstand, or kitchen counter. They're designed for you to show them off. The Canna community is also loving our hemp and cotton blend t-shirts, sweatshirts, scarves, and hats, finished off with our 8 Decades logo. We've got some awesome long-lasting goods that will be your favorite for years to come. 8 Decades, because a ninth decade of cannabis prohibition isn't acceptable.